Hey everybody, and welcome to Bright Founders Talk at Temy. Temy is an international software development company that designs, builds, and delivers software for sustainable businesses and promising startups. Welcome to our podcast where we bring you the most inspiring stories of entrepreneurs and experts in the software development industry. Each week, we interview successful leaders who share their unique journeys and valuable insights. Our today's guest speaker is Asha Joshi, who is CTO and senior at THINKIN. Hello, Asha. How are you?
Hi, Alexandra. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing good too. Thank you that you've made time to join us. So before we are going straight to the question about thinking about your journey, I wanted to mention that also you are a member of Startup Green, and also of another startup community in Chile. And I believe that you have a lot of connection. You've met a lot of entrepreneurs. So I wanted to start with the question: in your opinion, what are the most important skills and quality that a successful entrepreneur should have? What is your actual measurement of success?
Oh, that's a great question to start with. In my experience of my own journey and talking to other founders, I think there are three things that stand out for me. Number one is being a visionary, because when you start a company, you're taking very small steps. But what you want to achieve might take, 5 years, 10 years down the lane. So while you're navigating through those small steps and, making those small wins or having those failures, always having that vision in mind, the big vision, the big picture that you want to create, because this is what will motivate you to work hard every day for, 10 years. So being a visionary is something that I feel is really important.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is having a deep understanding of your customers and having empathy for them. So if you're building something which you think is a very very sexy idea, and there's a lot of money, but you don't really care about the users, you don't really understand the problem that much. You just doing it because you think it's a lucrative market. I think it's hard to make a company successful with that kind of a mindset. So really having an interest and understanding of your users. And the third thing is having a growth mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you jump into the startup world, that's has been my journey. That a lot of things that you plan don't go as you plan. Things happen that you don't expect. But in those situations, if you have a growth mindset, you don't look for what is not happening. You always look for how can I overcome this? What can I build in myself that this does not happen again? So having that optimism, having that growth mindset to always
Mm-hmm.
try to become better, whatever may be the situation. That's equally important. So these are the things that I feel that differentiates a successful founder with somebody who gives up on the way.
Okay, and what actually inspired you to pursue a career in technology, and how did you get you start in the industry?
For me, it was a very natural process, I have to say. So I did not start. I worked for 10 years before I started with my own company. So when I was starting after my university, I never thought I would become an entrepreneur. I never had any entrepreneur in my family. I had no exposure to startups. But as I was progressing, as I was becoming better at my skills, so I've been developing software for 10 years now. Before I started, so I was developing software for 10 years before I started my entrepreneurial journey. And I just felt in that time that I enjoyed building software and I was able to do it alone.
Mm-hmm.
I was building a lot of different softwares and I was doing them from scratch. I was designing, I was doing everything on my own. And I just felt that if I'm doing it on my own, maybe I should do it something that I'm really interested in. because I did work for great companies. I worked in great projects, but I did not feel that I had any relationship with them.
Mhm.
I felt more like I'm doing the job because that's what is expected of me. But it wasn't that I was passionate about the software I was creating. So yeah, that was a journey where I felt that, yeah, I think I have the skills to build something on my own, and I want to do something that I'm really passionate about. So that's how the transition happened, that I left my job and started something on my own.
Mhm. It's really, really important that your work is your passion. I believe it motivates you and inspire you to be fully concentrated on your company. And you just mentioned that we can say you didn't have the real example because no one in your family was an entrepreneur. And do you believe that uh, it is some kind of entrepreneurial instinct that you were born with?
I honestly don't know, but
Mhm.
what I know that I've been a bit of rebel from the start. So I come from a very conservative background. I was born in north of India, a very traditional family, and my parents always wanted me to get a very secure job, become a doctor or working for the government.
Mhm.
But I went into tech. Then I went abroad for my higher studies, which was also something my parents did not expect. And when I was at the peak of my career, I was making the most money I could have ever made, and I had the best position. Then I decided to leave that and start something from scratch. Yeah. I cannot really answer if there's an instinct, but I feel that I, from the start, was doing things that were not expected
Mhm.
from the people that were around me.
Really, really
Maybe,
interesting story.
maybe that's the case.
Mhm, mhm. And regarding thinking, how did you become the CTO of Thinking? And actually, you are not only CTO, you are CMO. And how do you manage to combine these things? Because technology and marketing, it's kind of different, how to say, spaces. And how do you manage to combine them?
That's again a great question, but there are so many small questions in this one question. So let me try to answer them one by one. Um, when I started thinking, I was primarily doing this to solve my own problem. So I had lived in Germany for 5 years, and then I was living in Spain for 2 years, and I had to learn the language for living in those countries, and I had no interest in learning foreign languages as such. So I just found that I have this problem that I'm not able to speak the language. I've spent so many years. So what's the problem? And I dig deeper into it. And, we can talk about it a bit later again. But that's how thinking came into picture. And because I'm a product person, because I'm have been building software, so it naturally was my responsibility to take the ownership of the technology part of our company. So that's how I became the CTO. And like I said in the start, having a growth mindset is very important for a founder. So when you start a company, it's very natural that you have to learn a lot of things that you maybe never had any experience in.
Yes.
So marketing, sales, distribution, those were the things I had no idea about. But I realized that if I, as a founder, cannot do that, so if tomorrow I get somebody from outside and I just rely on them to do it, and I have no idea about this field, this is how I uh, cannot have a control or cannot have a complete understanding of what I want to achieve. So that's how I also got into this role, and it has been really interesting because I see myself as a bit of an empath, and I had to get into human behavior to understand our users and understand a bit of marketing. So yeah, it was also very interesting for me to just expand another dimension to myself.
Really interesting story. And thinking, you mentioned somehow some facts about what you are doing. So it came from the need to learn the language. And so nowadays, Thinking is the world's most luxury language learning app. What do you think sets it apart from other language learning apps in the market?
So there are four categories that how we define, how we differentiate ourselves, and how we fit into the luxury tech category. So the number one thing is the specific focus. I'm sure that you will be aware of Duolingo or similar apps on the market which are for language learning. So there is one thing in common in all of them is that they are all targeting beginners, people who want to learn a new language. But what about those that are not beginners, that are stuck at the intermediate level like me? In fact, 91% of the people who learn a language, they never become fluent. They get stuck at the intermediate level, at around B1 level. So there is a huge market gap. There are so many people that learn a language, but then they're stuck. And this is called the intermediate plateau. And we focus specifically on these people. So we have a specific focus. That's the number one point. The second thing is that we focus on quality and quantity. So whenever you go to a language school or you take any app, there's so much content. You have no control over what you're going to learn. For example, if you go to a class, there's a chapter on the weather and you have to learn about the weather. Maybe you will never talk about the weather. That's a lame example. So we don't have any content. Our users decide what they want to learn and they learn only what they need. So we focus on quality over quantity. And the third thing is that there is transparency and control. So when you're learning a language, you have no idea how you're progressing. Okay, you have those certificates, but then that's like you do a course or do something for 3-4 months, and then you have one test to know what's your level. And if you use these apps, then you have all the XPs and some diamonds or badges for you to say that you're progressing, but that's not really a real indicator of how you're doing. But on Thinkin, we really measure your fluency. We tell you what is your sentence length, what is the word variety. So we really have those measurements on the app that you see in real time. And the last but not least, we are more than just an app. So when you join Thinkin, you have a personal onboarding specialist who shows you how to use it. And then when you have questions, you have a person to talk to. So there's a human touch that comes with Thinkin. So these are the four things that differentiates us from any other solution on the market.
Yeah, your approach is really impressive. The one about the quality over quantity and the regarding personal approach to each of the learners. Because I'm currently in the position I'm learning French and I've learned some time German, and I'm this position where I had some knowledge, some basic knowledge, and I don't want to come back, for example, to Duolingo and start from the basics, but I want to from the intermediate level to continue. So I definitely need to think about thinking.
You're always
of course. Yes, and so my next question will be about challenges. It's always interesting to discover. Can you talk about a time when you failed and what you learned from that experience?
Yeah, that's also a very nice question because when I started, I left my job, Thinkin was not the first company I started with. Before that, I had a different startup, and that was, are you aware of Clubhouse?
Yes.
So it was like Clubhouse, but over videos. So there were these rooms for discussions, but over videos. And we started before Clubhouse. The thing was that we were scaling very fast and we had great traction. Everything was perfect. But after 6 months of operation, me and my co-founder, we realized that we ourselves don't enjoy sitting in front of the video. We ourselves don't want to have these video calls every day. We don't want to talk about different topics every single day. So that's where this thing comes. How deep do you understand your users and how much empathy you have for them? So we realized that this is something that is not really enjoyable. This is not something that we ourselves want to do every single day. So if we ourselves are not enjoying, there is no use of pushing and then, trying to build something that we are not having a passion for. And that's why we decided we don't want to continue. And I think we realized it before Clubhouse. And I think Clubhouse was also shut down by now.
Yes.
Yeah, that was one failure. That's told me how much it is important to have passion for what you do, how much important it is to enjoy what you're doing, and to be honest about it, because we had the traction, we had users, but still we were honest that this is not something that we're enjoying. This is not something we would like to build for the next 5 years. So we decided to stop that.
Someone smart, really smart, said that if you choose the work which you love, you will not work a day in your life.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, passion is really important.
Yeah.
So you've told us about your personal challenges, and what about thinking? What challenges have you faced during development and launch, and how did you overcome them with your team?
I have to say that we have been lucky in terms of development, because me and my co-founder, we were so much interested in this, and it was our own pain, and we just loved solving this problem, because if you look at the whole industry, there has been not really any innovation as such in the area of language learning. The most you see is that people are translating, like taking the books and making them into apps. That's the most that is happening. So we are really passionate about it, and I love building software. So that came very naturally. With the launch also, we had luck, because we had users from the start who understood what we were doing. But having said that, we did have one big challenge, and we still have that. And that was that despite us, being so differentiated and having a completely different focus, we are not focusing beginners. When somebody saw us, they thought, they asked us questions like, they thought that we are a language school. They thought that we are like Duolingo. So because people have this mindset fixed that language learning is about a language school, language learning is about solving those exercises, grammar exercises. So no matter what we said, no matter how we looked, people always kind of projected that we are like the others. So that kind of making that shift in the user's mind has been a challenge. And yeah, I think this is very natural when you try to build something that is totally different. Yeah. So that's one thing I think I can highlight here.
And let's talk now about more the whole trends in the whole industry. What are some of the key trends and development that you see shaping the future of language learning and EdTech?
Yeah, this I think is a great follow-up for with the previous question, because like I said, there has not been a lot of innovation in the language industry. The most that we see is that, there are different ways to solve an exercise, similar kind of exercise on different apps. What we have done is that we have made the process as natural as possible. So what do you do with the language? You go out and try to speak. You try to put whatever thoughts you have into words. You try to make a sentence. And that's exactly what you do on THINKIN. The only difference is that there is nobody looking over your shoulder, looking at your mistakes. We have AI that does that, and you don't have to worry in front of the AI. So you're really free to speak the language. You're really free to say whatever that comes to your mind. So it's the most natural way to learn a language, to learn from your mistakes. And there's a term for it. It's called discovery speaking, where you're not told what you won't have to do, where you do it, you make a mistake, and you learn from that. So I see that.
As always.
Right. So I see that with the advances that are happening, we will see more and more progress in the direction of discovery learning, that it becomes as natural as possible. Also, broadly speaking, in the EdTech space, which has, as we know from our schools, that it has been always theoretical first. And I see that it will be more going in the direction that we would from the start be more practical, getting on doing things and then learning from our mistakes, learning from our experiences. So yeah, that's the shift I see happening more.
Interesting. And only last question about challenges and trends in general. What do you see as the biggest challenges facing entrepreneurs and technologists today? And how can we work to address these challenges? Maybe some kind of you have secrets.
So the biggest challenge for me, I can only talk from my own experience, is that there's a lot of advice on the internet, a lot of people that tell about how to do things when you start on the entrepreneurial journey. So what I found a bit problematic is generalizing it, saying it in a way that this is how it has to be done and there is no other way. But in my own experience, every startup is unique. Every product that is going to come onto the market will have to figure out their own way to distribute it. They will have to figure out their own marketing. They will have to figure out their own ways to navigate on that journey. So there's nothing that can be generalized. So it can be really hard for a founder when everybody is saying, okay, you should have a newsletter, for example. And the founder is spending so much time putting a newsletter, but then realizes, okay, actually, this is not something that my customers want to read. They don't have time for a newsletter. So as a founder, I think you need to be a bit bold. You can hear all the advice, but you have to know that what will work for you will be really unique for you. And that's a challenge when you're starting, you're naive. You think that the other person knows better, and you kind of let their advice overpower your own intuition. But I think, you learn it on your journey that you have to follow your own instincts more than what everybody else is saying.
Yeah, you're definitely right that every story is unique and there is a lot of stereotypes and you can't rely on them because you never know what you are facing, what you will be facing during your journey. And to sum up our whole conversation, the last question from my side, what advice would you give to someone who is interested in pursuing a career in technology?
Yeah, that's a really nice question because technology is the future, and the good thing is that you can really get your hands dirty without having to invest a lot when it comes to technology. Even there are online websites where you can start programming without having to do any setup. So the first thing I would recommend anybody who wants to make a career in this to just get their hands dirty. Just write any program, just create a website or create any kind of software. And even the good thing in this is that there are so many tutorials on YouTube. Just pick a tutorial. They are telling you what to code. Even you have that kind of support available. And this is all for free. So spend as much time as possible to do it on your own, to just copy what is there on the internet and then try to change a bit, take those small steps, but really get your hands on in programming. And once you feel comfortable and you're enjoying the process, then I think that's the perfect way to start.
Cool. Thank you, Asha. Thank you for coming on the podcast and answering all my questions. I believe that maybe one day we will record one more video about EdTech, about the whole industry, and of course about thinking. I wish you all the best with thinking.
Thank you so much, Alexandra, for having me. It was great talking to you, and the questions were really interesting.